Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is exactly 9:24 a.m. Central African time. Welcome to the program. We're crossing over to the UK now, and we'll be talking with co-founder of Palestine Action. She is Huda Ammori, to talk about a great victory for the organization and obviously for the people of Palestine. Huda, welcome to the program. Wonderful being in your company this morning, and huge congratulations.
Thank you. No, it's great news, and we're just determined to keep going and to get rid of all of Israel's arms companies here in Britain. But it's great to be able to celebrate this news not only with the people of Palestine, but also in South Africa. Of course, there's so many strong links between the people of South Africa and the people of Palestine. So thank you for having me on here today.
This is really good news, and I mean, the fact that with your activism, you and the organization, the activism actually resulted in this company closing down. They were responsible for the most heinous of crimes against Palestinian people, women and children. Give us the background to what had happened, how you as an organization became aware of it and decided to start your activism against this company.
Yeah, definitely. So just to give a brief context of Elbit. Elbit is Israel's largest arms company, and they actually market their weapons as battle tested because they are developed and tested on the captive population of Gaza, which obviously is under a brutal illegal blockade by Israel, which is being used as an opportunity where literally the majority of people in Gaza are refugees who've been displaced from other parts of Palestine, and our children who are heavily attacked by Israel, in order for companies like Elbit to market their weapons as battle tested. Then these weapons are built across Britain at different sites and then exported to other oppressive regimes across the world. And I think for many of us here in Britain, we were just sick and tired of appealing to the same government, to the same politicians to bring about the change that was so urgent for the people of Palestine, and so urgent to see justice happening. And with Britain being so deeply complicit for over 100 years in the colonization of Palestine, it felt more and more futile to go through the traditional routes of activism when we were just being ignored, not because we weren't right or we didn't have the truth on our side, but because the government was biased towards Israel's apartheid regime. So whatever routes we took in that way, we were always going to fall short, and it wasn't going to match the urgency and the severity of Israel's apartheid regime. And so we started to take direct action and set up Palestine Action, which is a direct action group targeting Elbit systems. Our main focus is to get rid of Elbit systems in Britain and then to move on from there. And we just had one of our biggest victories. So from the start of Palestine Action, people have been occupying, blockading, going inside of these buildings, breaking in, climbing on top of these buildings, throwing red paint all over them to symbolize the bloodshed by these factories. And people have dismantled the machinery from outside and inside, making it near impossible for these factories to be able to operate and produce their machinery, which will be used to kill people at the end of the day. So we acted with that urgency, and we've now received the brilliant news that one of their key factories in Oldham, after a sustained direct action campaign and mobilization from the local community, is now closing down, which is a tremendous success. But for us, it's just the start of the end for Elbit. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So having said that, Huda, my thinking is that it's $1 million or a $1 billion industry. They're just not going to shut shop and forget about it. They're obviously going to take their operations to another part of the world, maybe Europe, Africa, wherever. Does that mean that your activism would follow them? And also, what about activists that were involved here? Were you guys not harassed? Were you not probably jailed for destruction of property, interference in, daily operations of Elbit? How did you deal with all of that?
Yeah, so just to start, I think for us, so Elbit, compared to other European countries, they actually are quite densely populated, so to speak, in Britain, and they have quite a few sites in one place. And there's obviously a connection between the diplomatic ties that Britain has with Israel and the fact that there's such a large presence of Israeli arms companies building weapons here. So for us, being able to force out Israel's arms trade from a country which Israel deems as their strongest ally would be one of the strongest messages we could send, not only to the people of Palestine, but across the world, that even if governments are allying with Israel, which has always been the issue, it's never been the people, but that the people will take action in order to disrupt and stop this from happening, and will drive these companies out, even if our governments are complicit in it. And yeah, we've had many people be arrested in Palestine Action. Often when you are on top of a factory or taking action, it is how it will end at the end of it. And for us, it's a consequence that we're willing to take in order to shut these places down. That is our priority. And to be honest, nothing they can do to us here in Britain will ever compare to what happens to Palestinians every day just for being Palestinian under Israel's regime. So I think for us here, and for me, I'm Palestinian myself and Iraqi on my mother's side. I know about the situation and the horrors of injustice in the Middle East, and I think that the least I could do when I live so close to factories which will literally build the weapons which will be used to kill people like my family, is to go out there and stop it. They never build these weapons in front of the people that they will kill. They build them often in front of people like myself who grew up in Britain or different Western and imperial countries. And we can see this across the world. I think generally people do support Palestine. It's the governments who are continuing to support Israel's regime. And I think it's time for people everywhere, wherever we are, to tackle complicity with Israel's regime. And if our governments ignore us, to take a different route of action. But to know that, it's never going to be futile. And I think we can learn from the resistance and the strength of our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and in building that fight across the world.
It definitely proves that direct action does indeed work. And if you persevere, you can turn a situation around. So this is done and dusted. Elbit is now, they've closed up and they moving on. What is your next campaign? Because it doesn't stop there, does it? It's this ongoing activism and the awareness that you bring into people's minds that there's a whole parallel world out there that live under oppression and live a very different life to yours. What would the next then awareness campaign be, an activist campaign be, as far as Palestine Action is concerned?
So this is a massive victory, getting rid of one of Elbit's factories in Britain. Most countries only have one Elbit factory. We have a few more. So our next plans will be to escalate and amplify our actions across different sites in Britain and really ramp up the pressure at the other sides in order to shut them down too. So that's our next plan, is to use this momentum and energy and people who are joining all the time, and to go out there and to make sure that we get rid of the rest of these factories. And for us, that's the next step. We really want to get rid of Israel's arms trade in Britain. And show that the people can do this, and that we're not going to stand for the horrors, and we won't allow Israel's arms trade to operate here without being held accountable. for what they're doing. You know, it's quite abhorrent that we even have to do these things. I think often it's quite obvious that Elbit are literally complicit in war crimes and committing the worst crimes, not only to the Palestinians but to the Kashmiri people, refugees, people in Iraq and people in Afghanistan. And often it's up to us as the people to step up and take that action to get rid of these sites. And to hopefully end all complicity with Israel's apartheid regime.
And finally, obviously, it's very brave of you and the team that you work so closely with. I should imagine you're a big group of young people who feel very strongly about these issues, and rightly so. But you do place yourself in the firing line, do you not? Your lives are at risk every moment of every day. You are at risk of being taken out, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think we would want it any other way. You know, we set up Palestine Action because we wanted to be effective, and we wanted to be able to challenge these massive injustice that is happening. And I think when you're facing against something so big, and you actually want to be effective and successful, then you have to be willing to accept that there are going to be massive obstacles and there are going to be massive challenges along the way. And there definitely has been for us. You know, we've been stopped under counter-terrorism, interrogated for several hours. No charges were brought about. I've had my passport stolen by police, raids, devices taken, etc., etc. But you know, for us, that is part of the sign of success almost. And it sounds bizarre and counterproductive, but actually it's not going to be an easy thing to get rid of Israel's arms trade, or to truly challenge British complicity with Israel's apartheid regime. And in order to be effective and in order to be successful in that, you have to be prepared for any consequences that can happen. But at the end of the day, this is something that we need to happen everywhere, because you know, many of us are, I'm sure so many of us are sick and tired of seeing what is happening in Palestine. And really there's no bigger loss than having to see what Israel does to Gaza, as they had done in May 2021, what they continue to do in East Jerusalem. It has to end, and it's not going to end by just asking governments nicely who have been complicit in this for so long. It's going to end by us taking the power back into our own hands and taking action to shut these sites down, and doing it for our brothers and sisters in Palestine.
And all vulnerable nations all around the world, very especially minority groups. We know that there are unspeakable atrocities being experienced by vulnerable minorities, like I said, all over the world. Strong may you grow, and your group, you are the co-founder of Palestine Action. Much admired, I might add. Please try and stay safe and keep that flag raising as high as you possibly can. Hopefully we'll talk again with you sometime in the future. Stay strong, stay safe.
Thank you.
That was Huda Ammori, co-founder of Palestine Action, talking about the victory in Oldham, the closing down of the Elbit factory that has been forced to close down by the action by Palestine Action. They've been hard at it, they've been persistent, and eventually the company has had to shut their doors. Undoubtedly, they'll spring up elsewhere in the world, but let's hope they are as strong-willed activists wherever they decide to go and start up their heinous operations once again, and that is arms, manufacturing arms for Israel against the most vulnerable of people, and that is the dispossessed, the displaced Palestinian people. 9:39 exactly. We're going to be moving on, and I look forward to my next interview with a colleague right here on Salam Media, and that, of course, is Mariam Mia. She is an early childhood development expert, and also a senior presenter here on Salam Media. We're going to be talking back to school and obviously separation anxiety. Stay with us.